Hello and welcome to the Future Hospitality Summit podcast. My name is Ali from The Bench, and I have with me today Mike Rigby, who is the General Manager and Regional Vice President for the Middle East and India region at WhiteWater. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, good morning, Ali. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We'll jump right into it because we know you're a busy man. So why don't you tell us, for those who don't know, who you are and what WhiteWater is?
Well, I think it's true to say we are quite busy at the moment. So WhiteWater is actually the world's largest designer and manufacturer of water parks and attractions. So going back over 40 years now, we've been involved in many of the projects that everyone attending this conference will be familiar with, the likes of WhiteWater, Atlantis, Yas Waterworld, and so much more. And that is coming at the early stages, designing and sort of seeing those projects through to completion. However, outside of these large water parks, WhiteWater has been involved in such a wide array of projects, from small splash pads to hotels, communities, resorts, surf, everything water related.
Fantastic. I was reading on your profile that you're in the business of transforming brands into major tourism destination, which sounds like a very exciting job. So how does WhiteWater initiate? Where do you start? Where you're looking at Saudi Arabia right now. We've got our event coming up. So give us an insight from your perspective. How does this work for a market like Saudi Arabia?
I think you could approach that from several different angles. I think everyone attending this summit will be well aware of some of the giga projects that have been announced, are currently in construction. So we will be working on many of those large developments that everyone is familiar with. And a lot of those will be helping to put Saudi Arabia on the map. These are projects that will blow guests away, and we'll put Saudi Arabia as a leading player in the entertainment space with world-class facilities. However, there's also another aspect to that of, as we see tourism increase, as we saw more people visit to Saudi Arabia, people need places to stay. And when they're involved in that decision making of should I stay here, should I stay there, it is looking at those overall amenities. So if we were to look back 30, 40 years ago, just having a swimming pool in a hotel was enough. But that these days is not enough. People want more. And that's where we're seeing an increasing trend. How do we help differentiate our clients so that they can attract the families, they can get people staying for longer, they can make sure they're staying in-house and increasing that secondary spend?
Right. So can you tell us a little bit, what are you allowed to tell us about some of your interesting or exciting projects in Saudi Arabia?
There is a lot, some of which I can talk about, some of which I can't talk about. So if we focus on some of the projects that are out in the public, obviously the largest known entertainment destination is Qiddiya. So we will be heavily involved in that project, where there is a Six Flags theme park and a water park, and images and renders are already out, giving people a little insight into what is to come. I'm fortunate enough to have seen the whole plans for that, and it is super exciting. Aside from that, there are other groups that, Saudi Entertainment Ventures recently announced that we would be partnering to deliver flow houses across the kingdom. So flow houses is actually surfing in a small footprint. You don't need those ocean waves. Perhaps, on a standing wave, we can create these concepts where people can come, they can enjoy, a meal with the family, but also surf at the same time. And it will be a growing trend. Surfing right now is the world's fastest growing market. So that is a super interesting concept that was announced, in recent weeks. There are also, a couple of projects that have gone under the radar. There is a project in Jeddah, Cyan Water Park. There's smaller projects in Riyadh. And I think entertainment is booming. You see what Riyadh Seasons has done. And, if we can help contribute towards increasing that trend for people to look for entertainment in the kingdom, then we feel we've succeeded.
Well, tell us a little bit more about the Riyadh season you just mentioned. What happened there? What was your involvement?
Well, our involvement was actually limited, but I think it talks about the appetite for entertainment in the kingdom.
Yeah.
This was, a 6-month event similar to Winter Wonderland, where there's food and beverage. There was entertainment, be that from shows, be that to, small theme parks, roller coasters. I think at the start, a lot of people are questioning whether there is a market. This was doing between 500,000 to 1 million people in a month.
Wow.
So straight away, the local population was receiving this so warmly that it made a lot of people who were doing the feasibility studies for leisure and entertainment sort of take a step backward and go, we might need to take another look at this. We thought there was demand. This is showing that it exists.
Well, that's a very interesting point, Mike. You've got, of course, experience working in Chile, Mexico, Spain, and of course in the UAE. You were mentioning Atlantis Water Park and the stuff that we've seen here in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. For those who look at Saudi with a peculiar interest or perhaps a different perspective that you've seen, what would you like to say to them about this market?
I think we're at the very start of a long and exciting journey. I go back to the UAE, and the first park here was Wild Wadi. So that started in about 1997, when in that Jumeirah area, there was nothing. There was a water park, there was the Chicago Beach Hotel, which was being converted into Jumeirah Beach Hotel, but there was nothing else around that area. You look what Dubai has right now, that's the premium area. You've got the Burj Al Arab, you've got luxury developments around that. And similar for Atlantis, when it first was built on the Palm, it was an early development, and they've recently just expanded the water park. They've added the new Royal Atlantis. So I think the way I see the market in Saudi Arabia is it will follow, various stages. So right now we are on these big giga projects that put Saudi Arabia on the map, but that will only be the start of the tourism trend. And again, not wanting to refer back to the UAE, but a lot of our projects these days are maybe not the big water parks at your Atlantis size. They're in the hotels and resorts. So in the last couple of years, for example, we put in, a really nice water park at Jungle Bay at the Westin Mina Siahi, a lovely amenity in 1,000 square meter footprint at Jebel Ali Resort. And this is differentiating those hotels. And I think Saudi in time will see exactly the same trend. It will start with the big projects, but then there's a huge secondary market to follow in terms of how do we make people who are coming to the kingdom want to stay in our resort? How do we sweat that asset to generate as much returns as possible?
So it sounds like there are various sizes of projects that you're involved with. There are smaller splash parks, as you mentioned. There's the flow houses, which is the concept that you were referring to earlier, and of course there are the big water parks like the one that you've done in Jeddah. There's always the question that comes around sustainability. So how does WhiteWater deal with that? What are you doing to make it stay on that checkbox that we are making sure that, how do you do it?
It's certainly a difficult ask. When we look at water parks, we're using water, which is a resource that we have to treasure. We are using materials. There will be concrete, there will be fiberglass. So from a starting point, maybe we are a little bit behind because we want to use materials that are not perfect. Saying that, we've got an absolute laser focus on ensuring everything we do is as sustainable as possible. So that is very much from, ensuring that all of our designs, all of our attractions are using as little water as possible, that power and the water loss is, kept to a minimum. We're looking at new materials. If we can avoid permanent structures, if we can reduce the concrete build, then that helps. I think with all of these, with any construction, you can't be you can't avoid all the challenges, but we have a sustainability scorecard where we're trying to be carbon neutral by 2040. We're looking at how do we give back. We're looking at, repurposing a lot of our old attractions. So previously, when they came to the end of their life cycle, they might have just been thrown out. We are looking at ways, how do we, upcycle, recycle into different uses.
Gotcha.
And it's at the start of a journey as well. So we're going to get better. We are looking at more initiatives, but I think we are so focused on that it's affecting every decision.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Mike. Well, I'll go into my final question for you, and it's going to be more about the event that we have in a few days now. So you're obviously joining us as a sponsor, and you're going to be speaking at the Future Hospitality Summit in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, from 7th to 9th of May at the Al Faisaliya Hotel. What kind of people are you most interested in connecting with?
The hospitality sector is a market that's super interesting for us, but in both directions. When we look in North America, in Europe, a lot of our projects would be standalone. That's not the case in the Middle East and in Saudi Arabia. So I think a lot of people simply look at what we do as an additional cost. What's my benefit if I have this additional amenity? Am I going to generate extra revenue from this amenity? The immediate and obvious answer is no. We're not going to charge a hotel guest to come into a small amenity within that. However, when it comes to the decision making and when you dig into the numbers, the owner of my company will kill me for saying this, but we're a fantastic loss leader. It can make money by itself. But when you look at the impact of what we can do on occupancy, on room rate, on secondary spend, on RevPAR, these decisions start to become a bit of a no-brainer. So I think it's an education process of, we're not just here to push our own products. We're here to say, guys, if we look at all the additional benefits of offering more to your guests, there is a very interesting return on investment. And I think the more discussions we can have with developers, owners, and operators showing how we can directly impact their results, I think that will be a win-win for all sides.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for your candor, and I'm sure there's so much we can all learn from you and from your experiences building destinations and leading the I'm going to say the leisure and the destination development side of things. So we're all looking forward to meeting you in person as well. And thank you so much for your time today and sharing all your insights.
No, thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you in Riyadh in a couple of weeks.
Yes, we will.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Future Hospitality Summit podcast. For more information, visit www.futurehospitalitysummit.com.